Welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast Podcast. I'm Patrick Miller alongside Wayne Pua. We're gonna bring you in for another edition here of our pod. But first off, a big shout out to Wayne. He's been working a lot on shorts. If you're on YouTube and just want to check out our content and video, he got over 1,000 views on one of our short videos, and he's cutting a lot of our tape up and making us look really nice across SoMe. So give us a like too. While you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Really helps to drive awareness of the show and moves us up in analytics and monetizing and everything else. Also on Instagram, we love the follows. We love comments on anything that we're posting and even suggestions on show. Like, we try to incorporate what you're telling us. So keep it coming. But Wayne, first off, I got to mention, I did a bad thing over the weekend when it comes to our pod and things that we're trying to do. I was over at a friend's house in Virginia Beach, and I was free with the remote control in my hand, and I kind of went to a couple apps, and he left his YouTube unattended with his name subscribed, and I threw us a quick subscribe under his name. And this guy's name is Jason. If he's listening, I don't know if he is, but I'm sorry about that. If you start seeing our content, go to the top of the feed. That was my bad. But I'm trying to do what I can do out here. It's tough times.
No, I get it. My sister actually, both my parents saw us on YouTube actually over this past week. So, and then I think it was under my brother-in-law's account for YouTube. So she gave me a subscribe through his channel. So I think we're both hustling apparently and manipulating people for some subscriptions. So if you can, please, subscribe to our videos. We'll try to produce some fun, whatever content that, hopefully you'll like and everything. But yeah, would appreciate the support. So we can stop, asking or coercing our relatives and friends or in hijacking and hacking their accounts. So that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, please don't make us beg. I mean, we don't want to be those guys, messaging late at night or, stalking you on Instagram and stuff like that. So, with that, also looking at the weekend, I know I had a fantasy football draft. It's always a big spectacle year in, year out for, baseball and football that I'm a part of, the friends and family I've got around that. I know you drafted as well, Wayne. I think it was late last week, but I think what we're going to do is kick off the show with going over both of our drafts. And I think to make it relevant for everybody listening, we're going to try to, point out some of our favorite picks, areas where we may have missed, or, just guys that, fell out of our hands, guys that we wish he, could have added to our lists and our teams. And, we'll just kick it off with Wayne. If you want to talk about how your draft went, what you thought, interested to hear.
Yeah, sure. I could definitely kick it off. So my first pick, I had the 8th overall pick out of 10 teams as PPR. I had Najee Harris. I picked Najee Harris as my running back ahead of Deebo Samuel and Alvin Kamara. I think and Dalvin Cook as well. So I like Najee. I just think that with Pittsburgh, I think that kind of right balance, at least in my opinion, of a team that is really going to be depending on the running back, but has weapons at wide receiver to keep teams honest. So that's where I'm like, I think Najee Harris is going to have, a successful sophomore season, hopefully. But that's my bullish case for that, is Najee Harris. I think that as a running back, he's going to outperform some of the other top running backs in this class. So definitely high on him. My second pick in the second round, I got Devonta Adams, and this was a tough one. So Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon were both off the table there. I'm definitely it seemed like a lot of people wanted to get the two running backs off the bat for at least this season. But Devonta, I like the whole pairing with Carr. I almost regret it though a little bit, because I was debating between him, Devonta Adams, and Stephon Diggs, who won in the next pick. Actually, I think Stephon Diggs has a weaker schedule, weaker division. So there's a lot of that's in play for Stephon Diggs to outperform Devonta. That being said, with Devonta, talked about, new team with his college quarterback. They still don't have a chemistry. that being said, too, Hunter Renfrow is going to get some targets there, so could steal some targets, some valuable targets there. Whereas Buffalo, they do have some wide receivers there with Gabriel Davis, who I know you like, Pat, as kind of a sleeper pick, and a lot of people see a lot of upside there. As I know they have Jamison Crowder and several other wide receivers, but not to the extent of Hunter Renfrow, who's definitely that slot wide receiver that's going to get a lot of targets, especially in the PPR league. So it was kind of my regret. Like, looking back, was that really the best pick? But yeah, those are my first two picks. Pat, would love to hear your thoughts, and did I make any mistakes? And then would love to hear your first two picks.
Yeah. No, I don't think you made any mistakes, especially for the first two rounds. I know we try to make it seem like the first two draft picks are going to dictate the rest of your team or the rest of your draft or something like that. But I never think that, truly ends up being the case. You can't go wrong with, Devonta Adams in the second round. I mean, I think that's about as safe as you can maybe get at the wide receiver position. And then I'm all in on Najee Harris. I mean, I think you and I were having conversations about him online, offline, whatever it was. But, I was actually in the fourth pick of my draft, and I got Najee, and my choices were him, Derrick Henry, or Dalvin Cook in a half PPR. And honestly, everyone's making a big deal about Big Ben leaving and how this offense is going to be in disarray. But what about Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett is not good, on the same shelf as a aging Big Ben. I mean, Big Ben everyone was calling for him to leave in those last 2 or 3 seasons, and his production really fell off, and he was able to still, from a fantasy perspective, make those guys all relevant. So, if their passing game is going to be their shortfall, what are they going to go to? They're going to go to Najee Harris, carrying the ball, or dump off passes. And, last year he was second in catches, and I think he was either first or second in targets. So, as a running back, I should say. So it's, for me, I'm like, okay, he's in his sophomore year. What did Jonathan Taylor do in his second year? What did CMC do in their second year? And it's not like he didn't break out in his first year either. I mean, he was a top 5 running back. So, why is everybody passing him up? That was the thing that kept coming to my mind. And I also was thinking about the downsides of a Dalvin Cook or a Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I think, is in age 27. He played 8 games last year. He was banged up. Who's to say he won't get banged up a little bit more this year and take away some of his value? Mm-hmm. Dalvin Cook, year in, year out, is a guy that's always, among the top 3-4 guys to be talked about. But again, he doesn't play full seasons. He plays, 11 to 13, and I think 14 games is his top, amount of games in his entire career. So it's just I even think both those guys ranked in a little bit near the top 20 of running backs last season. So it's kind of I think people get caught up on some name value of certain guys, and it's I just want meat and potatoes. I want points. I want, I want stuff that's going to be solid, to be honest with you. So I went Najee first round, and coming back to me, I had to wait a little bit because of the 12-team draft, but I was hard pressed. I was stuck between taking another running back to just shore up that position, or take a little bit of a risk positionally by going with Mark Andrews. And that's where I went. I went with the tight end. I see him as being a top 2 guy, cemented. Travis Kelce is a stud. He goes way earlier than that, generally speaking, which he did, but he's going into age 32, for his season. And Mark Andrews going to age 26. And Mark Andrews had more targets, more catches, more points than Kelce last year. And I know, again, it's the name value, it's the security blanket that everybody wants, but I thought that was a good pick.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I think that's a great pick. I think he'll outperform Kelce. I mean, both tight ends, lost the big home run threat at wide receiver with Kansas City losing out with Hill, and then Baltimore losing Brown. That being said, if you look at the focal point of everything that the Ravens do, a lot of it has to do with the tight end. And I know they loaded up on Likely at tight end and some other ones, but Andrews is the guy. Andrews is the wide receiver. And it's funny how a lot of teams are like, oh, they lost Brown. What are they going to do? They do have Bateman and some, Duvernay and several other wide receivers. but it's like, no, Andrews is their best wide receiver. So I like that pick. I think he'll outperform. I think in terms of their scheme between those two, I certainly think that Andrews will fit, is always going to be the number one target. I think with Kansas City, they're going to be divvying up the ball a little bit more. So it's not just focused on the two wide receivers that they had like last year, which could be good for Patrick Mahomes, but not necessarily for Kelsey or maybe some other wide receivers. I think they'll kind of do the whole spread the ball around like old school Tom Brady used to, for sure. So, but yeah, I like those picks. With my third and fourth round picks, my third rounder, I went the wide receiver route. I was debating between, and I'm looking at the two running backs that were picked right after me at Saquon Barkley and Cam Akers. And, I just was not sold on either of them. I think possibly Cam Akers, I was like, maybe not, but I felt really good about getting my pick in the third round, Michael Pittman Jr. actually. He's getting Matt Ryan. He's going to be the number one wide receiver. He's going to get all the targets. He's had 1,000 yards, 80 plus catches, still fairly young and everything. So I see a lot of upside for him potentially as somebody that could outperform some of the number twos out there, or maybe a number one. Who knows exactly? But I see some upside there compared to I think what I was seeing with regards to say Saquon or Cam Akers and how I was feeling about them. So I went with in that area, going wide out. My fourth rounder, this one I was like, this is my first gamble, I think, of the draft. So my fourth rounder, I picked J.K. Dobbins. It's interesting now because I think there's some news now coming out. He's still going to be hurt like come week one. I think the Ravens are looking to sign Kenyon Drake. So there is some possibilities of him not starting at least initially, or having his reps being conserved a little bit. So but rookie year he had 6 yards per carry. So I definitely see more upside there. He was injured all of last year. And with Hollywood Brown not being there as much, I think there's going to be more opportunities to run the ball a little bit more. I know that they do have a backfield with Gus Edwards, and now looks like Drake coming along there. So there definitely is going to be some aspect of the workload share. But, with Dobbins, at Ohio State, he was always like 20 plus carries a game. And, I think he could carry that more so in the NFL with the Ravens come year 3 now for him. So I see more upside there. I picked him over, and this was again kind of like am I a little bit dumb here? Maybe we'll see. But I picked him actually over Nick Chubb. So that's where I'm like, Nick Chubb is a big name, has a good offensive line. Not going to have Deshaun Watson. Maybe I'm talking myself out of this right now. Not going to have Deshaun Watson for, was it the first 11 games? So, there's definitely going to be more of a workload there. But I just felt really good about Dobbins having a better year in year 3 coming off an injury and that explosiveness that the Ravens have. So, those are my 2 picks, Pittman Jr. and Dobbins.
I like Pittman. I think that, you're getting the bona fide number 1 for the Colts. He was with Wentz last year, moves over to Matt Ryan. I think that's the type of quarterback that knows how to feed wide receivers. I know he's in his later days, but in the same sense, he's made Ridley, relevant, recently. And I think he did a great job with Kyle Pitts last year. So I think there's still some life left in that arm. And I think that, Pittman's put up those numbers last year in the same sense could improve on that. At the 4th round, I, had heard actually some good takes on Dobbins and analysts in the fantasy community that were, like you're saying, like going back to his productive years and looking at his age and saying, this is the kind of guy, especially in a Baltimore Ravens offense, that if healthy, can put up the numbers. I think that, reading notes probably after even you drafted, there was some stuff in notes that were saying like he's a little bit slower moving through this injury. Ravens want to be safe with a guy of his caliber. So that's one warning sign. I'd be a little bit nervous. Personally, I get nervous when I see injuries next to running backs to kick off the year, especially at high draft pick positions. But Nick Chubb too. I'm a fan of Nick Chubb. I think that, talent alone, he's an absolute monster. And I know, Cleveland, they kind of split time with him and Hunt here and there. And, we're all kind of wondering, like, what is the Browns offense going to look like, minus Watson. And it's probably not going to be too pretty for them, but he should see like the bulk of, the carries, touches, whatever you want to call it. I might have gone Chubb there, but, I don't want to sit here and be like, because Dobbins has the talent to be in the top 4 rounds. It's just like, you're kind of just waiting to see what's going to happen. But, comparatively speaking, when you pass on Akers, I thought that was the right choice, because not only is Akers dealing with this injury, but I can't really sit here and say like, Akers is a top 4 talent, in terms of, the rounds. And then he's probably going to split time with Darrell Henderson off the bat. And, who else may come into the fold? I mean, Sony Michel just got released. Who's not saying the Rams will go right back after Sony Michel and just, create a 3-headed monster there? So it's a little bit tough, man. It's a tough one to kind of navigate through.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely got it for me. So I was definitely conflicted there. And there was also David Montgomery. So I was like, okay, I definitely wanted to go the running back route, but I felt at least it was definitely much more of a feeling, I think, for me with Dobbins. And, I am more bullish, I think, with the Ravens outperforming this year, the performance that they had last year. But, we'll see. It's definitely a more of a gamble, but I think it's a high upside pick at least. So, all right. Yeah. So would love to hear, I think, your third and fourth picks.
Yeah. So in the third round, it came back to me after the wrap. I picked Andrews. And then, I was looking at a couple of different players. I think, I was thinking I had my eyes on like Mike Evans on the turn, but then he got sniped and came back down to me. And I was actually pretty happy with where I landed in terms of player, because I got James Conner at the third round pick. And I had James Conner the year prior. He had 18 touchdowns, complete monster. I think I got him in like the round, 10, 11, 12 zone of last year's draft, and just completely, nailed that pick, I guess, just having as part of my roster. Now you minus Chase Edmonds from the mix, and it's kind of just his backfield, which makes me feel even better. Considering the pool of running backs that were there, I didn't have a Nick Chubb. I didn't have other guys that might go, in the first 2 rounds. So he was the best of the remaining. I do have my concerns with most running backs, just based on his own injury history and, what could happen if he has any sort of touchdown regression negatively. Like he's not a sure thing to, take 18 to the house again. So, I could see lesser stats there, but I felt like that was solid enough for my RB2. And then coming back around, I grabbed my first wide receiver, kind of keeping in mind, I thought this draft might be a little bit deeper this year. And Cortland Sutton fell in my lap. I'm going into this one again with a little bit of a mixed feeling, because like Connor, I drafted him the year before. So I had him on my last year's roster. And I think I got him with like the 5th round pick or something like that. And he was a complete bust. And I think part of the reason why he was such a bust was his quarterback at the time, with like Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater splitting time, kind of still that uncertainty. But he did put up, marginally good stats. And he did, I think, lead the league in air yards for targets. So it was like they were trying to get him the ball deep, but they just didn't connect. So I think what a lot of analysts are excited about is you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson who can throw the deep ball really accurately, and you have one of the, premier receivers for going deep and, just having that as part of his game. So I could see him fulfilling, to a maybe watered down version of a DK Metcalf. Like, I'll take that with my first receiver if he gives me 80% of that production.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, that's a great pick. I have, I'll touch base on Sutton a little bit more. He's actually he's my 6th round pick actually. So I guess there's different scoring, whatever for our leagues and how they adjusted everybody. But yeah, Cortland Sutton is actually my 6th round pick there. But I do like the Connor pick. He's going to get reps. And I think, when you're drafting high in the first like 3-4 rounds. You want to get players that's going to get reps, So there's nothing wrong with that. Connor's very capable, and he's definitely like that bowling ball type of running back that can, if they get to the red zone and the goal line, he's going to get some touchdowns. So, I don't see anything necessarily wrong with that pick. Sutton, like you were saying, he's going to have, I see a higher upside. I don't want to say like, I do remember several years ago, and RIP to him, Demaryius Thomas, I remember when I think he had Tim Tebow passing to him in one season. The next season, he has Peyton Manning passing to him and just has an incredible year. I think that's what the transition was there. So, but, you can definitely see that when you're a talented type of wide receiver, you kind of just need somebody that has that capability of, tossing a nice deep ball that can get you those, 20, 30 yard scores, or just get you some awesome yardage. And Courtland Sutton has always been that kind of wide receiver. Yeah, like to your point, he just never had that quarterback necessarily that could throw to him and put the ball into his position that he can get it. So that's always where I see Russell Wilson with Courtland Sutton. I think that they play each other's strengths. So definitely excited about seeing that matchup there. So I know that took my 6th round pick there. But my 5th round pick, I can go with that one. I did go the quarterback route, and it was a debate between like my favorite player and who I think is going to outperform my favorite player. My favorite player is Lamar Jackson. And I saw another player out there, Justin Herbert, that I picked to win MVP, and I know has the wide receiving assets out there. And I think it's just going to have a hell of a season. So I did go with my brain over my heart there with getting Justin Herbert. Lamar definitely has, some question marks, doesn't have a Hollywood Brown. A lot of his offense is just coming back from last season. Yeah, they looked great last season, but yeah, when you subtract a wide receiver like Hollywood Brown, even though they still have some wide receiver talent in Bateman, Duvernay, etc. It's hard to beat that continuity that Herbert has with Williams, with Keenan Allen, and Eckler, one of the best, backfield catching running backs out there. So, I want the Justin Herbert route, and he can still run too. So he's a pretty athletic quarterback. So I went his route, that route over Lamar. Patrick Mahomes just got taken before me too. So, for me, it was like Lamar, Justin. I wanted to get that quarterback there. And that was kind of the position value, I think, that I saw too. So, one Justin Herbert, my pick for MVP. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got him at a good value, I think, relatively speaking. I mean, in my draft, Josh Allen, I think, went in the 3rd round. So, like, if you can get Josh Allen in the 5th round, aka Justin Herbert, why not? And I like your point about his rushing yards, because I think that's a little bit overlooked with a guy who, throws as many touchdowns as he does. It's like you don't really know what else he contributes on the field. And for fantasy purposes, I mean, 300 yards rushing is notable. So I also like his TD to interception ratio. He doesn't throw like a ton of picks for how many touchdown passes he throws. And if you're looking at Lamar on the other end, you'll get the rushing yards, but then you have to deal with this almost split TD to interception ratio. So not as accurate of a passer, and weapons maybe take a hit this year for Lamar. But we'll see. You know how I feel about your round 6 pick. So I think that's money in the bank, especially where you got him. I think that's actually a pretty good value. I mean, you're almost like ROI on that pick's going to be like money in the bank.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy about the Courtland Sutton pick. So I'm very looking forward to seeing Russell Wilson throw bombs to him, hopefully. So yeah, but who's on your list now, or who's up next?
Yeah, so round 5. So I took Courtland Sutton, and I was kind of targeting receiver. I was looking if there's any value at running back at that spot. I just really felt good about the wide receiver pool again. I felt like this was the point where I took Gabe Davis at the 5th round. It was, I think, pick 52. I think analyst consensus on him is around pick 60. I just knew that if I didn't pick the guy that I thought was going to break out and be an absolute stud this year, if I didn't reach just a little bit, I wasn't going to get him. And I didn't want that to happen. I mean, I watched the playoff game from last year, and I actually had Gabe Davis on my roster for like the last maybe 5 or 6 games. Like once he actually, put up double-digit points, I think that's when I was like, okay, I'll take a flyer on this guy. And so knew the name going into the playoffs, and this guy's 6'2", 220. He's explosive. He's good at getting the ball in the end zone. I think Josh really built a rapport with him, in the playoffs that they unfortunately lost to KC. But coming into this year, they got rid of Emmanuel Sanders. They basically named Gabe Davis as the 1B to Stephon Diggs 1A, and I just want to see if they'll live up to it, because I couldn't think of a better situation for him to be in. He's almost in like the Mike Williams situation, with the Chargers. He's just, not to say he's a similar player, but in the same sense, I mean, if you got, Keenan Allen and, Mike Williams getting passes from Herbert, and you look over at the Bills, they got, Diggs and Davis. I just think that's a great pairing for him. And I wanted to see this out. So I grabbed him in round 5 just to shore him up in case something goes awry, or if he just is an average part of that offense or player. I grabbed Marquis Brown, who slots into my flex position. He had about 90 receptions last year with the Ravens, which is pretty shocking. I didn't think he had that many, but just think he's the kind of guy who, you throw him in the slot, he's going to grab a bunch of balls. He, can make big plays. I've had him a couple of years, prior to now drafting him, and he was kind of a bust for me. He was real lackluster. I think I grabbed him like the 4th or 5th round, and I'm hoping to change my luck with him. I think going to Arizona and, being with Kyler right off the bat, I think him and Zach Ertz will, eat up a ton of targets while, DeAndre Hopkins is out for the first 6 games. Connor will get his work too, but I just felt good about that offense and felt good about, the safety of grabbing Marquise Brown the 6th round.
Yeah, I love that Marquise Brown pick. I think he'll do great. And yeah, I like how you brought up, Hopkins isn't going to be there for, several games. So he's going to develop some continuity, develop that relationship more so in game with him. So I certainly see a lot of upside with Hopkins. Granted, we know he's a great player and all. So, and he's very explosive. He can get those bombs, and I definitely with the, with was it Kingsbury's the offensive mind behind everything. I certainly see a lot of upside there, and as long as Kyle Murray is watching those tapes and everything, I think I think it's a great pick. And then when Hopkins goes there, maybe you could flip him. Who knows exactly? So, or just keep him and see how their relationship continues. So definitely like that pick. And then the Gabe Davis pick as well. I think you had 2 pretty upside, low downside picks. With Gabe Davis, I think it's they have Crowder, and I know they drafted Khalil Shakur, who I'm pretty happy on, but that might take a while to develop that relationship. That might oftentimes wide receivers that are rookies, when they do have some veteran wide receivers out there, it'll take them until the end of the year after they get, their footings in the door. So I see Davis contributing a lot. I think he killed it in the playoffs with Josh Allen, and I think they'll continue on that. I know you had Josh Allen as your MVP. He's definitely one of the top quarterbacks out there. So, if Gabe Davis is going to get 70, 80 targets or more, he's going to get some touchdowns there and some yardage. So I think, both those picks are solid overall. So
and it's kind of funny too, because I've heard some analysts downplay, okay, it was one game, he had 4 touchdowns and 200 plus. It's when does that happen? When does that mistakenly happen for receivers that fall off the map? I don't ever hear any sort of examples of that happening. And I'm just I know he's early on in our ability to trust him and to feel like that, he's cemented, he's legitimate. But I mean, give me another example of a guy who's done that in a huge playoff game and how that would affect, the quarterback's trust moving into the next season. If this guy can do that in the playoffs, maybe we were just overlooking him the entire time. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean that's a great mistake if if you just mistakenly have a blowout game like that. Like that's awesome if you can just do that just like on the fly. And yeah, I do think there's gonna be some continuity there. I think they're gonna build off of that. And there's also just a great person to learn from Stephon Diggs. Like, he was a 5th round pick and then made one of the best wide receivers in the game right now. So definitely a lot of upside there. Yeah, moving on. I know I'm looking at my it was like 7th and 8th round picks here. So 7th round pick, I went tight end route. Dalton Schultz went off the board. So I saw the next tight end that I was looking at was TJ Hawkinson, actually, out of Detroit. Not too many wide receiving options in Detroit. I know they drafted Jameson Williams coming off an injury in college, but Hawkinson, I think he has one of the best strength of schedule ratings for tight ends, actually. So for me, with tight ends and how that goes oftentimes is the strength of schedule. It's sometimes hard to navigate who's going to cover the tight end. Is it going to be the linebacker, or is it going to be the safety? Hawkinson is definitely one of their best overall athletic position players out that they have. So I know he's going to get some targets. I think there's some questions on if he's capped out already. Like, they are only bringing more talent to the Lions, but I think there's just more room to grow for the Lions in general. So I'm happy taking him in the 7th round there. And then 8th round pick, I went running back again here. I wanted to shore up or kind of get a backup, if you will, for J.K. Dobbins, kind of hedging my bets there. I went the Clyde Edwards-Helaire route here. It's pretty sure that he's going to be RB1. I know that there's some other competition that he does have, but the Kansas City Chiefs, like I said, they didn't have, or they got rid of Hill. So he's going to be much more of a fixture, especially in the red zone, I believe. I think he's going to get, I think he's had 4 touchdowns each of the first 2 seasons. He's now coming to his 3rd season. Usually for running backs, 3rd, 4th, like 5th year, like age 24, 25. That's like once they, start to pick up on everything. Their body is still intact, but their mind, they understand the game more. They understand their system more. So I'm seeing some upside with Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. I picked him ahead of like Cordell Patterson in terms of running backs, Juju Smith-Schuster, and even Dallas Goedert if I were to went the tight end route there. But overall, I think I felt pretty good with that pick compared to some of the rest of the players afterwards. So, Pat, would love to hear your thoughts on those picks.
Yeah. With Hawkinson, I think it'll be interesting to see how, Jameson Williams gets incorporated into that offense. And then DJ Chark, I know they signed as well for this season. And Amon-Ra St. Brown was a breakout last year. I know that DeAndre Swift is a guy who gets a lot of touches, but all that being said, their line has improved. If Goff can just stay the ship, maybe that's an improved offense. Maybe this is a sleeper team in the NFL term of things where, we always kind of downplay what the Lions are, who they are. I don't know much about their defense. I don't think they got high grades, so that's going to be the thing that maybe hampers them. But it seems like their offense is moving in the right direction. And, Hawkinson's rookie year, I think he came out, showed out for a tight end. I think he was, within the top 8 or so. So with where you're grabbing him, you're obviously not going to hit on the top 3 or even the top 5 at that point. So you're kind of looking at the best of the rest. I think that Dalton Schultz, might have a productive season. I like, him with CeeDee Lamb. I think that's going to be kind of the new 1-2 punch there outside of the running game. But, I think Hawkinson can get his points. I think he, can establish himself as, maybe your top 7, top 8 tight end. I think that that's not a pick that's going to break your team. And I think in the 7th round, with what available talent is out there at the tight end position, you did well to shore that up. I like CEH as a guy you get in the 8th round. I think that's a good value for him because, we're looking at Isaiah Pacheco as kind of his backup. And I've heard rumblings that Ronald Jones is going to be cut from the team. So, that leaves CEH and Pacheco. And I know Pacheco's got like a lot of athleticism. He's young. He's a rookie. He's got some bursts. Like that's all great. But in the same sense, I mean, people were hyping up, Edwards-Helaire in his first year. I think he was going first 2 rounds of drafts and stuff, but it doesn't always pan out for rookies to just come in and bang it up. And like you said, maybe it's taken him a couple of years to, get his feet wet. Maybe this is a year where you can be a productive back. And as your third back, I mean, in the Kansas City Chiefs offense as the RB1, that's good insurance to have. I mean, even if you get him for, maybe he deals with some injuries or whatever else, like you're still going to get production probably when you need it. If you got bye weeks or just an injury to one of your other starters, like he's a guy you can plug and play and have confidence with as your third back. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's funny is that too, with Pacheco and everything, great athleticism. And I think that's a good pick for the Chiefs overall. But yeah, him and Edwards-Helaire are the same age actually. So like only by separated by a month. So, not as much wear and tear, I guess, or, if you want to look at the NFL route. But I think that there's going to be enough room for both of them to eat. So
that sounds good. I guess in my 7th and 8th round, so I picked 3 receivers in a row: Sutton, Gabe Davis, Marquis Brown. I went an extra layer. I want an extra layer of protection because I don't want my wide receiver position to be bad. Again, I thought this was like kind of the money spot to grab a receiver. So I grabbed Juju Smith-Schuster as my 4th wide receiver, maybe my 2nd or 3rd flex. I just felt like, him coming over from Pittsburgh, coming off an injury season. So he didn't have much stats to talk about as of last year. But, he was also in the, final years of Big Ben. And, again, I think people overlook, he wasn't an elite passer at that point in his career. And, Deontay Johnson was getting a lot of those targets. I mean, even Claypool was, biting into some of his target share, and they were feeding Najee all year. So as a rookie, so I think that, Juju gets a chance at 25 years old to start anew. In his first, 2 seasons with the Steelers, he was, a fantasy beast. I think he was a top 15 wide receiver. I'm not banking on that, but I just think pairing him with Mahomes after, losing a lot of his receiving core of the guys they brought over, a Valdez-Scantling. I know they got Sky Moore in the draft that a lot of people are excited about. I am too. If I'm Patrick Mahomes after I do my, Kelsey checks, I'm going to want another guy who can stretch the field a little bit. It just seems like, for my 4th receiver, I'm very comfortable having him there. And if he's a complete bust or gets injured, so be it. In the 8th round, I needed to grab a running back at this point. I'd passed over a lot of backs with a lot of other picks in the 6 through 8 rounds, I'd say that, were intriguing enough. I passed on a Penny, an Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard, Kareem Hunt, Ramondre Stevenson. So when it got to me there, I was like, okay, what else is left here? And is there anything that's like worth grabbing in this spot? And I thought this would be a good time to grab Dameon Pierce from the Houston Texans. He's been getting a lot of helium in drafts lately. I mean, I've heard some people going into round 5 grabbing this guy because of what they think Lovie Smith's going to do with him. There was news today. They actually released Marlon Mack, who was his probably main competition for getting the bulk of carries. So Dameon Pierce is kind of in like the 3-down role. I mean, they are saying Rex Burkhead might still be a factor in the passing game. Maybe that takes away a little bit of his work. But again, if you're going to give me a back who I can count on as an RB1, and, if Houston Texans are playing from behind and they just need, a guy to get out there and just get some touches and give him some looks, I mean, he's probably going to get a lot of opportunities. So fresh legs, I was happy to get him. And now with a lot of the things that have happened in Houston and just what people are saying across the fantasy landscape, I'm like, okay, I feel a ton better about taking that guy where I did.
Yeah, I think those are 2 great picks, actually. Again, not to toot your horn and everything, but, with Juju Smith-Schuster, I like Juju because, Tyreek Hill, he had 159 targets last season. Who's going to get those targets, right? I think that's the big question. So, McCall Hardman can only get so many. Kelsey can only get many more additional targets or Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield. So he's going to get targets. And Juju Smith-Schuster, he's always been talented. And it's just been kind of a mix of like, how does he fit the certain system? And I think, Matt Nagy, he's gonna hopefully know how to use him. Not like how he didn't know how to use Robinson, but I think there definitely is some upside there. I think with Juju, and then Dameon Pierce, that is a hell of a pick. I think possibly he could be like a top 10, top 15 running back. Just with the the Texans, what is their offensive identity? Like, is it Davis Mills? He's just going to pass 500 times? Like, no, they're definitely going to be running the ball. And, you also got to look at the history of like running backs and running back culture. I think, with the Texans, they've had, a bunch of nicely producing running backs in fantasy football in previous years. So I certainly see that there's some upside there. And like I mentioned before, competition is really like, 70% sometimes of like the top four rounds. And when you're drafting players, like if there's no competition for a wide receiver or a running back to kind of contest with, then they're going to get reps and, they're going to get more yardage, more touches, more touchdowns, etc. So, I love that pick. I'm surprised a lot of teams aren't, or a lot of people aren't picking him sooner. Well, maybe not like, third round or whatever you were talking about, but I definitely see that there's a lot of upside, especially where you got him. So yeah, I think that's a solid pick. So cool. Where are we at now? Well, for me, I'm at round 9 and round 10 here. Could definitely talk about these picks. I wanted to go running back again, shore it up. Of course, now in this late stage of the game, there aren't too many running backs that are aren't going to get those reps per se. But Tony Pollard came up though, and it just seems like Ezekiel Elliott's either going to be hurt or he's going to be digressing a little bit. He's only getting older, so I certainly see Tony Pollard emerging a little bit more. So and getting some reps there. Dallas Cowboys, sometimes their offense goes ups and downs, but if they're going to score, I think Tony Pollard can definitely be involved there. So like Tim there, and with the 10th round pick, I kind of a gamble, but like you mentioned, or like we were talking about before, it's about the reps and getting those targets. So it is a PPR league. I went the route. I think I saw somewhere, it might have been PFF or one of the fantasy football sites, saying that the Jacksonville Jaguars had the easiest schedule for wide receivers. So I went that route and got Christian Kirk actually. So I'm not talking about his contract and like how absurd it is, but he's got Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson behind him basically to throw and figure out passing routes towards him. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more of an upswing compared to last season for Trevor Lawrence. And then doing so, also seeing Christian Kirk getting some receptions there. So yeah, Tony Pollard out of Dallas in the 9th round, and then Christian Kirk, Jacksonville, 10th round there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both of those picks. I think with Pollard, he kind of showed you that he's not too far behind Ezekiel Elliott for, production or, ultimately usurping him as the lead back in that offense. I think, Elliott's tied to that big contract, but in his last 3 years, his carries have, gone down in volume over that time. He's also getting older. And, Pollard's going to, catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. I think he had around 40 last year. I mean, I could see him getting 50 balls plus, being a second part of that, running back dynamic. And, if anything happens to Zeke, which, he hasn't been bulletproof, you've got a bona fide, top 10, top 12 back for the weeks that Pollard is all by himself. So, if that is the case, you don't have to worry about CEH or even Dobbins. I mean, I think Pollard's a guy you could, start in a flex position off the bat for the season. I mean, I think he's just a good option to, kind of plug and play. So that was a good pick. And then Kirk, yeah, I mean, I agree. I didn't love his contract. I thought that was ridiculous when I first saw it pop up on the bottom line of ESPN. I was like, yeah, right. So I think Arizona was smart for letting him go in that sense. But you're also right that, pairing him up with a second year of Trevor Lawrence, being an established pro. I mean, I actually like Kirk's, just mindset and the way, like, I've watched him, in games on Sundays and such. I just like that he seems like such a consistent guy for, every team, for the Cardinals, and he was a part of that team, but also just, you could see that him and Murray had some real trust that they established with each other. And I almost feel like he's able to garner more trust than he, I guess what I'd say is, like, I think he's able to garner trust that kind of supersedes his actual talent. Like, I think he's the kind of guy like a Randall Cobb or, I'm trying to think of other good comps for him, but, like, I don't think he's like a, in an NFL draft, like a guy you would draft in the top 3 rounds, but I think he's like that 6th, 7th round pick who's just real gritty, and he's just going to get in there and, like, do his work and get his like, workload set. I feel like he'd be perfect with the New England Patriots even. Like, he kind of reminds me of like an Edelman or Welker, it's primed to break out. But anyways, love the fit there. A PPR league, especially because, you're just going to get a lot of catches out of that guy, and they're going to target him a lot. Chark is gone, so he doesn't have to worry about him. And, I think I know they just traded Laviska Shenault today. So there's got to be some faith there, and they're going to need somebody who they can, trust in the air. And I think Kirk's their guy. Yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah. And Christian Kirk got last season when he was with the Cardinals, 103 targets, 77 receptions. So that accounts for almost 75% catch percentage, which is pretty awesome. So definitely had a stellar career. Hopefully he doesn't slide too much there, at least for my sake. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess in my rounds 9 and 10, I'm going to take a swerve. I'm in an IDP league, and I'm going to save everybody the time because I think for 99% of the fantasy players out there, you're probably not grabbing anybody in an IDP league, but I will make a plug that, I've been doing IDP solely for 20 or so years, and I absolutely love it. I think that doing it has allowed me to get to know, linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks around the league, defensive ends, and kind of knowing what their output is. And we've tried to quantify that. So it's interesting to, like, see the guys that come up year in, year out that, a lot of you don't know of Foye Oluokun, that went from the Falcons to the Jaguars this year, or the fact that Casey Hayward was the most productive D lineman last year. Like, I just think that kind of stuff is interesting from a statistical perspective, but I'm going to jump ahead to rounds 11 and 12 for my draft to go back to offense. And round 11 is when I grabbed Trey Lance, and round 12, and that was my only quarterback. And round 12, I saw Tyler Lockett just hanging out there in the 12th round, and I was like, I'm just going to grab this guy because, I know what he brings with a real quarterback, but I think we're all kind of wondering, like, what's Seattle going to look like this year? But Lockett is like Christian Kirk to me. I mean, he's going to be there. He's dependable. I think he works hard. I think his output is better than his actual talent in some cases, but he's a grinder too, because he'll go up for balls. He'll get, his cap knocked off, and he'll just get right back up. And I think he's like 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", or something like that. But he's just real shifty, crafty, and I've always liked watching him with the Seahawks. And this is my 3rd straight year having him, so I'm just interested to see what he can actually give me. Maybe a flex option.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, good call out on, like, defensive players. They have lives too and everything. I think the very first time I participated in, like, fantasy football, I'm like, well, what about, like, Brian Urlacher, or what about, like, Peanut Tillman and all that? And coming from Chicago and being Bears fans, we don't have quarterbacks. We have a linebacker, a cornerback, a safety, and all that. So shout out to all the defensive players there. So that's really cool. But yeah, I agree with the Tyler Lockett comparison to, like, a Christian Kirk. They both, again, the previous seasons, they both had over 100 targets, 70 receptions. So kind of having that 70% catch percentage, that's definitely been consistent with Lockett. Just this one previous season with Christian Kirk. So, hopefully, again, for a PPR league, I think that's a solid pick. or just a general good pick. Lockett's had 1,000 yards previous 3 seasons. Albeit yes with Russell Wilson, but if he can get 80% of that, 90% of that, that's still a pretty solid season overall. Kind of getting him where you are getting him. So I definitely think those picks are solid there. Looking at I'm at 11th rounder and my 12th rounder. So wanted to get a backup quarterback here, and I was kind of debating, between either Derek Carr or another quarterback that I'm looking at, right, or the quarterback that I picked here. But I picked the quarterback with a little bit more upside, I think, at least for my sake, in Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk's quarterback here. Kind of like I mentioned with regards to the upside. Jacksonville has an easier schedule this year compared to last year. Like I mentioned, they had Doug Peterson, who's was able to coordinate an offense where Nick Foles was a Super Bowl winning quarterback there. Big Dick Nick. So I think he can do tremendous wonders with the talent that is Trevor Lawrence. Like, people forget that, that he was the number 1 overall pick. Is kind of like a gazelle and how he runs. So I definitely see some upside for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, at least statistically. Definitely much more of a backup quarterback. We'll see if he has a good matchup here and there. But I see a lot of upside, I think, for Trevor Lawrence compared to, with a Derek Carr, who we kind of know what we're going to get there. And then with my 12th round pick is Cole Kmet. So, I was talking about TJ Hawkinson and kind of how, the Detroit Lions have gotten more wide receivers out there, more passing talent out there to kind of take some of the reps. And that's where there might be a little bit of a, downside or a ceiling already for him. Cole Kmet's kind of the opposite in a way. The Bears, like we've talked about before, they haven't really done too much in the offseason in terms of getting Justin Fields more help exactly. Sure, they had N'Keal Harry and drafted Velus Jones, like things of that nature. But in terms of someone that's getting a lot of receptions or a lot of targets, Cole Kmet has been targeted a bunch this preseason, so it's looking pretty good for the Bears to be utilizing him more in the offense, especially in the end zone. Last year I think he had 90. I think it was 90 targets, 60 some odd receptions. But 0 touchdowns, I believe. So, they really just passed it over to Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham's not here anymore. Cole Kmet's a big guy. So this preseason, he actually got a TD reception. So, I see a lot of more opportunities for Cole Kmet and a lot more potential and upside, I think, for Cole Kmet for the Bears this year. So looking forward to seeing, in the later rounds. Yeah, for me, I went a little bit more on the gambling side of players with a higher upside there. And I think Cole Kmet's a perfect complement to my pick of Hawkinson. So looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I think those are both solid picks in the later rounds. I think Trevor Lawrence will show out much more now that he doesn't have Urban Meyer, as a distraction coaching him. I think that really set everybody back a year, which is just tragic for football. But there's too much talent with Trevor Lawrence not to like. And, they did spend a boatload on bringing over pieces and parts to just help that team all over the place. And, hopefully it just sets him up at the right, yard marker when he starts with the ball, it's on the defensive end. And then, when he gets in the offense, now he's got Travis Etienne back and he's, got a new receiving core for the most part. So it's kind of hopefully that's a good, kind of reset for him at quarterback and let his talents just kind of show out. So I think you'll be fine there. And then Kmet, I'd honestly say he might be a better tight end than Hawkinson this year when it's all said and done. And I say that because of what you just mentioned. I mean, he had the targets there last year. 0 touchdowns. There's going to be regression there. I could see him getting 5 or 6 in this offense. They're going to be down, I think, a lot this year, especially second half. And they're going to have to play a faster style. They're going to have to, get the ball going, pass it around. And I think that's, one guy that Fields has rapport with already outside of Mooney. And, we brought in all these spare parts and we got young guys coming into the mix too on the offensive side. It's just I would trust Cole over, N'Keal Harry, Byron Pringle, some of these other spare parts that we got. I mean, it's going to be pretty sad year, I think, in Chicago, but I think Cole Kmet might be a bright spot in fantasy, just from a guy you can trust to give you double-digit points week in, week out.
Yeah, for sure. I think I might actually start Cole Kmet more probably this season than Hawkinson, but we'll see. Very much optimistic about that. So, but do you have any other players that you drafted or anything else like that? Like, I know we're kind of the later rounds here, so
I'm gonna name all I had 3 more offensive players outside of my defense and kicker and all the other stuff that I'll just raise. But at this part of the draft, so I grabbed Trey Lance, and I was between Trey Lance and Stafford, and I was just sitting there because I knew most of the other players in my league grabbed their quarterback. But what ended up starting to develop was everybody started to go after backups, and it just started to get really tight. And so I grabbed Lance, and I think he'll be as productive as a Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts might have an extra year ahead of Lance in that regard, but I think the Jalen Hurts hype, and I like the Eagles, like, believe me, I do, but I don't think they're that far away from each other in terms of what they can do output wise. So I felt pretty good with Lance, but I wanted to cushion him with my guy at quarterback. And I waited 1 pick too late. I got greedy and I took Kenny Walker. And I know he's injured for the Seahawks, but I grabbed him knowing that, him and Penny are going to push each other, but in the same sense, I mean, people were talking, the world about his talents, and I think the Seahawks are going to be pretty bad, so they're going to have some space there to showcase him. And I'm looking for league winners at that point. I don't know if Rashad Penny's that kind of guy, but if Kenny Walker gets the opportunity, like, he's a guy who could break out and be big. But we'll see. But the second I picked him, the guy behind me took my sleeper in Kirk Cousins, and I know we're probably like, it's Kirk Cousins, right? Like, don't get so worked up about it or whatever, but like I see this Minnesota offense being completely reborn with Kevin O'Connell coming over from the Rams. They've got Jay Jets, they've got Thielen, they've got KJ Osborne. He's got Dalvin Cook behind him with Madison if anything happens. Like, Irv Smith Jr.'s looked okay in his first few years, but it's like I just kind of saw this as being more of like high-paced, fast-paced offense. I liked what Cousins put up last year in terms of total points and on a week-to-week basis. So I had Cousins at some points, and he really bailed me out. I mean, he was my only quarterback at some points last year, and I was like, this guy is great. So, yeah, my cousin took him, and I just was pretty disappointed. So at that point, I just punted completely on quarterback for the rest of the draft because there wasn't anything that I was excited about. I'm not going to grab Daniel Jones. So the last 2 picks, and I'll wrap it up, but James Robinson, I got in the 15th round. And then I took Tyler Algier in round 17. I hope I didn't butcher his name, but James Robinson is complete opposite of Algier, just for the sake that Robinson's actually put up numbers. He's a guy that, when he's healthy, I know they can lean on to be, just a solid back. And, he's got injury concerns. I think he's coming off a major injury, but so is Etienne. And I just don't know if it's going to be one of those situations where Etienne is, slowly brought into the offense. He's more or less their third down pass catcher because that's kind of what his bread and butter is, receiving. So who do you need to run between the tackles to get the big, goal line score? I feel like James Robinson might be that guy. And I think he could have a good year, and getting where I did, he was basically free. Algier is a little bit different because he's brand new. He's a rookie, but he's entering an offense that is also going to be terrible. And they've got Cordarrelle Patterson, who we all were kind of like batting our eyebrows about last year. But Matt Patterson had a good year at running back, especially for fantasy, put up points. But he is entering, I think, his age 30 season, and people are more or less looking for more of a traditional back to kind of take that over. So if there is a little, pocket of wiggle room for him to get more carries and to kind of run with the job, I think, if I can get a starting running back out of, Algier at that point, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll just go to the well.
Yeah, I like those picks of Walker, Robinson, and Algier. It's kind of like, the younger right, the better. Like, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriends. Like once they hit 25, you dump them. I feel like so. it's kind of like that with running backs, I feel like these days. So I mean, yeah, Robinson's 24, just made the cut, just had a birthday, so good for him. And I think the rest are rookies, right? So they're probably under that. But yeah, I think that those are solid overall.
Dude, and James Robinson's from Illinois State. I mean, he's a Redbird. I mean, you gotta appreciate a guy's hustle like that. I mean, there aren't many Redbirds in the NFL. Just saying.
Yeah, undrafted. So yeah, really, yeah, him and ETN are definitely, I think, a good combination. I think they complement each other. So, and like I said, yeah, the Jaguars, their strength of schedule is like one of the weakest ones. So I think there's a lot of upside there. Yeah, I guess just finishing off mine here. I did draft Dotson 3rd round. Wanted to get, kind of somebody again with upside by then. Had to get my kicker and Justin Tucker. I seem to always just want to get him. Maybe I overdraft him. Sometimes I just don't care because I just know what he can produce. And I always just like not knowing, like, okay, I'm just going to get him and then he's going to do whatever. He's going to hit a 50-yarder and it'll be fine. So, yeah, I usually try to aim after Justin Tucker. And then, yeah, capping off, I'm a little bit weird. I like to get 2 defenses just to see, kind of play around the matchup. So I got a Colts defense, and then I got the Steelers defense. Colts, statistically, they've just been better, and they're look to progress or be better this season. And then the Steelers, they have a playmaker in TJ Watt, and it's kind of hard to go against that. Minka Fitzpatrick and some of the players are there. So went with the Steelers there to wrap it all off. So yeah, that's Pat and I's. That's completely wrong English, but Pat and my draft picks there. So would love to hear which ones y'all thought were great, which ones sucked, and you have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, we'll definitely share those picks in some sort of picture around here or whatever, if this is on YouTube. So yeah.
Any overall draft takeaways for you? Like, were there any friend picks in your league that were just like catastrophic, or were there any players that you didn't get that you wish you had, or any players that were overdrafted? You're like, wow, that's just not a guy I would take at that spot, or anything like that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, it was kind of hard to say. Like, I think a lot of people in my group kind of played it safe a little bit. But I would say in terms of like players that I think had good value, I saw 6th round Darren Waller, I think is a pretty solid pick for that value, for a tight end. I think that's good. Darnell Mooney, who I know I've talked about before, I think he's going to have a lot higher upside in the 6th round as well. I think DK Metcalf 5th. I don't not necessarily a reach, but I think there could have been better value there. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly which picks are not going to do so well. I definitely think Allen Robinson actually here. Now I'm looking at it. Allen Robinson 7th round. Hey, with an offense that actually knows how to use him, quarterback that knows how to throw the ball and everything. Solid offensive line. I think Allen Robinson will definitely have good value in the 7th round for PPR leagues. Yeah, Garrett, you have Cooper Kupp and everything like that, but you can only pass to him so much, right? So I think someone like Allen Robinson can definitely warrant that. And they went out of their way to kind of get him too, so they really accommodated to get Allen Robinson. So I definitely think that they see a lot of value, as the Rams organization see a lot of value in him. Bateman, he's going to be, wide receiver 1 now for Lamar Jackson. Hopefully maybe for, the Ravens' sake, that he gets like 1,000 yards or maybe 900 yards in his first year as wide receiver 1. I see some upside there. And I'm looking here. DeAndre Hopkins, it's hard to say. 10th round isn't so bad, but at the same time, he's going to be missing several of the first games. So, don't really see too much, I guess, after that. So, yeah, I think overall, at least my league kind of played it safe, but nothing too crazy there. So, but yeah, anything with you?
Yeah, I just the first 2 rounds of my draft were like, I was so flustered. I got to, I had the fourth pick in the draft, so it's like I really wanted Austin Eckler. I wasn't going to get JT. I actually didn't want CMC. I know analysts are all over CMC and like how amazing he is, and I know he is when he's on the field. But it's, he's missed 23 of his last 33, so it's like I'm not ready to spend that kind of draft capital on somebody who's that brittle, regardless of what his upside is. So really wanted Eckler, and then I was just stuck. I think we talked about my debate with Henry Cook and Najee. Felt like I reached probably on paper for Najee, but I was ultimately happy with that. And then when it came back, all the running backs I was looking for, I was hoping Kamara, there'd be a potential for him sliding a little bit if people were nervous. There was one other back that I had my eye on at that point. I mean, Aaron Jones would have been somebody I would have been happy with. And then right before my pick was Javonte Williams. And I had Williams for his rookie year, and I was kind of frustrated with the Melvin Gordon thing, but I just think his talent alone will be worth that second round pick. So, hats off to all the managers who drafted, but some other just smaller ones. I thought that, Antonio Gibson going in the 6th round to me, turns out to be kind of a steal at this point. I feel like we're going to get into it, but Brian Robinson, his backup, was kind of the next guy in line. I think that will end up being a value. I heard he's getting involved in the kicking, maybe punt return game, which, could just add extra yardage if you're in that kind of league. And then I think he assumes like a big role in this offense still. So to go in the 6th round after going in the first 2 last year, I think that'll be a big, value pick for the manager who got him. And then personally, I just wanted AJ Brown. I really wanted him, and it just didn't work for me. I mean, somebody took him after I took Connor, and it was okay at where the guy took him, but I just think AJ Brown's going to have a great year with the Eagles, and just wish I had some of him on my team. So that's it. But I mean, that's basically, kind of a wrap for this fantasy session. And, if I want to go right back to the Gibson point,
sure.
Brian Robinson, backup for, the Washington Commanders at running back, was driving in his car and reportedly had gotten shot multiple times in an attempted robbery in his lower half. A lot of this, a lot of this stuff was not life-threatening. He wasn't in critical condition. They brought him to the hospital and treated him for his gunshot wounds. But Wayne, I don't know. Did you have any reaction to this or thoughts? Just from a societal perspective for Brian Robinson, and maybe for his football stock at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that he's okay and everything. I think it was like 2 gunshot wounds to the leg, so some on crutches. Looks like he's out of the hospital, and even brought his I think it was his running back coach some Oreos in the entire running back room. So there's like a picture of him. Like, I don't like Oreos, their stock's gonna go up probably tomorrow, whatever. But yeah, like it's a nice thing to see of some cookies and him bringing those cookies over to the running back room. So it was pretty fun to see that. This is the Ball and Breakfast Club, Ball and Breakfast podcast. So it's always nice to integrate food and sports here. So, and I think that was pretty fun from the Oreos standpoint there. But yeah, it really just goes to show. It's like, I think he was coming back. I believe I read this somewhere. He was coming back from like I think it was like a team dinner or something like that. And then just, was caught in the wrong place, wrong timing and everything like that. So, it's just unfortunate something like that was happened to him. Rookie year, you have all this like anticipation for what's to come and everything. And it looks like he's going to miss at least 4 games, who knows, maybe more his rookie year. So, and yeah, he was definitely fighting for Gibson. I know Gibson, he's definitely a fumble machine, I think is what a lot of people kind of call him. So a lot of people were kind of picking Brian Robinson there and seeing if they can get him and, seeing if he would surpass Gibson in the depth chart there. So kind of unfortunate, I guess, from that standpoint, but he's still young. Hopefully he'll fully recover and everything like that. I'm not too sure about like gunshot wounds and affecting agility or anything like that from a running back perspective. But it's just unfortunate. I think that happened like right now, like right before the season's about to kick off and everything. So, but yeah, I think those are my thoughts there.
Yeah. I mean, just knowing that he came out of Alabama, kind of had it, his future ahead of him. And, Bama's produced a lot of 1,000-yard backs, especially in the last few years. Just kind of came as a huge shock just to kind of see, him being involved in a situation like that. I mean, I feel like athletes are prime targets for these types of, crimes. And, I remember a time when, even if you're looking at Latin American players, having family members kidnapped and held for ransom and stuff like that. Like, it's just a scary, situation to be in if you're, starting to make, good money and you're, however you're representing yourself, whatever neighborhoods you're still, living in or whatever areas of the city you might be, part of at those times. Just kind of overall, just extremely disappointing. Very happy that, Brian Robinson was, able to make it through a situation like that. Like, I can't even imagine, even if it wasn't, in a part of your body where, could turn into a critical situation. I mean, just being shot a couple times, just, it's just gotta, definitely, take the wind out of you. And also just like, I just imagine it'd be kind of, scary for an athlete to have to go through that kind of situation and see, what it really takes to get back into game shape. And we'll have to see how long his timetable is for return. Hopefully it's speedy. So everybody at the Ball and Breakfast crew, that includes only Wayne and I, but we send a shout out to Brian Robinson and his family. Like, don't want to see any more of this stuff kind of happen. It's just another incident among many others in this country where it's just, it's getting really redundant and for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And how about him? I think I was seeing Twitter talking about this. It was like, 2 days after he gets shot, he shows up to the office, and it's like everybody's like, "Man, I have a slight cough. Like, I got a fever. I gotta take the day off." So, but this guy gets shot, twice in the leg. It's like, no, I'm not gonna take a sick day. I'm gonna go bring some Oreos into the office. That's, from a white collar worker, like, yeah, that's not a thing you do. You get a shot, doing whatever. We're just gonna sit back and relax a little bit. So,
dude, if I get shot, I'm asking for another round of paternity leave.
Yeah. Shot leave, whatever.
Good God, man. It's possible. Hey, it's possible, man. This country, believe me.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just unfortunate, but yeah, it seems like he's in good spirits there. So, yeah.
Well, we're talking about work and, disappearing for whatever reason. What's going on with Tom Brady, man? Seeing stuff in the news. This guy was MIA. I think, the FBI put out a most wanted for this guy. I think he was on Unsolved Mysteries for a, feature episode. But like, wait, what's happening with TB12?
Yeah, apparently he was gone for like 11 days, I think. And nobody knew where he was. He wasn't at training camp. And apparently the entire world just fell apart there because Tom Brady wasn't there. But then he returns and shows up at the news conference and was just like, hey, I'm 45 years old, whatever. I'm old. I got shit. Like, I got stuff. So, I think my initial reaction on this is like, dude, like, whatever it is, whether it's personal, whether, he's just forgot to cancel his reservation because he got retired and was like, oh, I still need to go on this vacation because they don't do refunds. Like, whatever the case may be, like, my opinion is Tom Brady, out of anybody that's ever played football in its ever existence, he deserves it. He can just show up. Like, he literally can just show up, tell everybody what to do, and be totally cool with it. Like, he's still gonna be. I know we picked the Bucks to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm not gonna back down from that. I don't. This is the most committed person possibly out there. He takes care of his body. He could have easily retired and just be totally fine with that. 7 Super Bowls and everything, all the accolades in the world. But he chose to come back. So, I don't know if there was some sort of hesitancy or what, but honestly, like, again, if there's anybody that deserves some sort of leeway there, it's Tom Brady. He's earned it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only quote I saw about this topic was, I'm old, man. Or like, I'm old as shit. Or something like that. I was just like, yeah, man, Damn right. You're 45. You've got, 7 rings. You got a supermodel wife that, probably has requests for him as well. I mean, at this point, he hasn't been there for his kids, little league practices or soccer games or, who's bringing the snacks? Who's bringing the Capri Sun? Tom, it's your turn. Sorry, I'm going to be 2 weeks late to that, OTA crap that you're doing over there in Tampa. So I totally get it, man. I mean, sometimes people just need a break. And even so, Aaron Rodgers has missed all of, mini camp at some points. I mean, guys have held out for parts of seasons before. So to make an issue of this at all is just it's kind of weird. And, he doesn't have to explain himself. I mean, he basically is he probably doesn't want to make GM decisions, but he probably could if he wanted to. But he definitely is now the head coach of that team. So he's doing what he wants to do. It's TB's time. Where we stand on, Super Bowl predictions, everything like that. I think this team's gonna be locked and loaded when it's all said and done, and he's gonna be the main reason for that.
Yeah. Live your best life, Tom. Live your best life. So yeah,
for sure. No. Another guy who's going to be MIA for the NBA season is Chet Holmgren. I think you probably saw the reports of him going to be out now for the year with a foot injury that he sustained at a Pro-Am game. I think this brought up 2 points for me when I first saw this news, flash. I think the first thing that came to mind was I was right. And I don't mean that for I just was like, this is the fear that I'd have as a GM if I was going to this year's draft and making decisions based on, personnel, the guys that were on the top of the draft board. Just looking at his body, man, I don't know about you, but I had my concerns looking at him. I mean, he almost looks like, Kristaps Porzingis is fasting for Ramadan. I was like, dude, this guy is an absolute skeleton. He's 7'2" and he weighs under 200 pounds. I mean, that's just not good. So that was point A for me. It was like I kind of know this is coming, and I just feel like he's gonna have a long career of BS like this. Number 2, I don't get why these guys are doing these Pro-Am games. I get it. It's cool to see LeBron play against a bunch of no-namers in a remote men's league intramural gym. But fact of the matter is, one of those games got canceled at the half because there was water on the floor. The other thing is, it's you guys are making millions of dollars in the most popular league on the planet. What in the hell are you doing? And why is the NBA allowing this to happen? I don't get it. I mean, this is Fernando Tatis doing wheelies in his motorcycle. Get these guys off the court. I don't care to see DeJounte Murray, show up, Paulo Banchero. And, I just don't know, man. Is the juice really worth the squeeze for these Pro-Am games? Is the NBA benefiting from, these guys getting out there and being, very viral? But it's just Chet goes down in this type of game and it's okay, see, you don't have your guy. I mean, could have happened on the real court, but again, I just think it's foolish. What do you think, Wayne?
Yeah. I mean, I get that perspective for sure. I think it's a mixture of things, these players, they're ballers. That's what they do. James Harden, he's always been showing up at Pro-Ams or working out at random Lifetime Fitnesses and stuff like that. So part of it, from my understanding, is a lot of players will show up to these Pro-Ams and, rec leagues or whatever, or, just random gyms, partly because they want to better themselves, actually. So it's kind of like training, a mini training camp before the training camps, with their team. So they're testing out new moves. They're working on the step backs. They're working on, the dribbling and transitions and stuff like that. I've been seeing more on, from the LeBron front. I know he's been kind of working out a strong side step back. So he's going to his right side a little bit. I think he did that in the Pro-Am in Seattle. The same game that Holmgren went down with his Liz Frank injury. But yeah, I think LeBron is practicing that. I saw him practice that on Instagram before, and I saw him shoot it in the game there in Pro-Am. So I think, that's one thing he's going to add to his arsenal hopefully, I guess, for his sake, one more thing to add for the NBA game that he has. So that's, I think, by thinking on that and marketability too, I'd like to see, how many shoes LeBron sold in the Seattle metropolitan area after this whole event, just for a little simple game where he's also kind of working out some new moves, which is pretty crazy for somebody that is going to be breaking the all-time, scoring record and everything like that. Still working on his craft. So if that is the case, but I mean, yeah, it is unfortunate that he got hurt. I know it's kind of similar of how like some NBA players get hurt for, if they're participating in the Olympics or things like that nature. But yeah, I guess with the Olympics is like there's some national pride, a lot of other stuff there, compared to like a pro-am. But part of it too is like he hasn't played an NBA game, so this is like, and again, like a way for him to kind of get more familiar with some of the top level talent like LeBron, not necessarily the summer league yet. So it is a mixture, at least with Chet Holmgren in this situation. I think of play with LeBron, see what that's all about, get his legs stretched out a little bit, and get that NBA feel, with some former NBA talent and some current NBA talent. So I can't knock him on it. That being said, like, I guess now it's maybe be a little bit more careful now, or wear thicker socks. I don't know what the whole all the training and all that does exactly, but yeah, if there's ways to prevent it, I'm sure he'll take more precautionary measures, hopefully now, because yeah, he's done for the year, and that's gonna suck. So yeah.
I mean, I'm all good with pro-am games for like when Mookie Betts wants to bowl, or if Steph Curry wants to play golf. I mean, I want to see that stuff. I like those little celebrity outings. I think they're fun. But yeah, man. I just think it's I've stated my piece. I just I'd hope no more guys get injured. If courts are in conditions that are subpar, I mean, please take these guys off the floor. We don't want to see them get hurt before the real season starts. And guys, horse is a fun game, maybe a little knockout. I mean, if you want to do that with Ray Allen and Cuttino Mobley, like, I'm cool with that. But anyways, I'll leave it there. I guess speaking of injuries, we can go back to our favorite team in the major leagues of baseball, but looks like the White Sox are really stumbling. They're really falling out right now. I think the last time I checked, they were 2 games under. They're about 5 back in the Central. Looks like the Guardians and Twins have gotten a little bit closer in the standings. But Wayne, do you have any thoughts here just on where the White Sox stand and what's going on?
Yeah, it's going to take a miracle for them to win the division. It sounds like it's more likely than, say, the wild card. So yeah, it's hard for me again to feel optimistic about any of this. I think I love that there was that sign of like sell the team or whatever. I think we all saw it, and like I think it was like one of the White Sox batters was like getting drilled or was like dodging a pitch or whatever. So I think that perfectly encapsulates like what's happening. But still, they're only 5.5 games away in our division. I think they're down though against right now the Kansas City Royals. So, but they're still only down 5.5. With what was it? So it's like 128 games have been played. So that's what 34 games still there. So it would take a miracle. But yeah, the way that we're playing and the way that where things are at, like, yeah, things are just not looking good. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get a 20 homer player. Like, this is ridiculous. So, I think there's gonna have to be some changes. There's way too much talent for this team to be not performing as well. So if things are the way they are right now, kind of continue on, like, this is just not acceptable. I think for this squad, the amount of talent that's on this team, the amount of investment on this team. So something's going to have to change. And who's to blame? Like, for me, it starts with La Russa. It starts then it goes to Frank Manichino. Like, he's been a terrible hitting coach, like wherever he's gone. So like, I don't know how he's still able to get a job, but whatever he does, or, it's just not working. It's not resonating. Our hitters are not taking steps forward. They're taking steps back. So he's got to go for sure. And then there has to be some culpability. I think for us, it's like Rick Hahn has been kind of a tertiary compared to those two, but, didn't really supremely address like the right field area. And then also like second base has been iffy kind of here and there, respect to Josh Harrison and everything. But yeah, like things just have been kind of up in the air with regards to that training staff too, injuries. It always seems like the past several seasons, there's always been some sort of injuries happening. And then, like I said, this is like one of the more talented teams out there on paper. So like, how is it that we're not able to, fully put some things together, get the right amount of vets there, get the right amount of coaching? There seems to be some sort of, whether it's the aura or like, the spirit of the team just isn't there. It's just missing that winning attitude. So I'm just thinking like changes are going to have to happen. But like I said, we're only 5.5 games out, which is pretty crazy. That's the same amount of games. We're closer than say the Rays are to the Yankees. Rays are 6.5 games out to the Yankees. So, a lot of crazy things could happen, but there's going to have to be some fun stuff happening, some sweeps and stuff like that. But I'm just not optimistic about that.
Yeah, I think, seeing Kopech go on the IL, they threw Grandal on there, Moncada. We've been out with, Robert Jimenez this year at points. Tim Anderson's out. It's been bad, man. It's just been this whole year, the juju has been off. I think that's something that I always try to keep an eye on too. Like, we talked a lot throughout this year about the Twins and the Guardians, and we don't always agree on whether or not those teams are of the same amount of talent as the White Sox. And I think the one thing they have in their advantage is they've just had that chemistry going all year. Twins were up high in the first half, and the Guardians have kind of roared back, but they've been in the mix the entire season. And we're picking the teams apart, we're picking the players apart, but at the end of the day, like sometimes you just need to have that confidence and that right mix of guys, and talent doesn't always win out. So that's been number one for me. I think number two, if not 1B, is what you're saying. I mean, I think you're looking at the coaching staff. I just look at the coaches in that dugout with La Russa being just really I guess his prime is well behind him, obviously, with falling asleep and making certain decisions that just don't make a lot of sense. He just doesn't have his finger on the pulse of the team. But it's also just the composition of those coaches. It's like so fragmented. I mean, Ethan Katz was like Giolito's high school or college coach. So he comes in especially for Giolito. You got Miguel Cairo as, Tony's bench coach, which is just like, I don't know if it was like they brought him in for just being more of like the Latino influence on the team. It's really heavily Latino, which I think would resonate well with the players. But I don't know what rapport Miguel Cairo has with Tony La Russa. I think there's a shot that maybe he was a part of the Cardinals teams and maybe they had some good vibes then. But it feels like kind of a reach of a hire at the bench coach position, which I think naturally is like a former manager, just to have like another set of eyes that has like actually run a clubhouse. And then, like you're saying with Medicino, the offense has been dreadful this year. I mean, and then you brought over a holdover in Joe McEwing, who came from the Renteria era, where it's kind of like, is there any forces there between those two where it's like, hey, well, I know what's been going on before you even got here, all of you got here. So maybe there's some arrogance coming out of a Joe McEwing, but it's just, I don't know. Last point I would say is the training staff. I mean, I don't want to pin this on them as, hey, like all these guys got hurt, so that means that you didn't do your job. But like, and I know we've talked about immaturity from the roster too, but hey, too many guys have gotten hurt this year. They seem like outliers. I mean, Eloy's the only guy. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, since those guys have gotten in the pros, those three, Moncada, Robert, and Jimenez, they've been splitting time on the IL like every single season. So it's like, there's just got to be something there to examine. Like, has that training staff been in place for a while? Like, how have we, ranked in the league for injuries versus other clubs based on, their performance. Like maybe that's part of the shakeup too. So, when we go into the off season, I think we both expect moves. I'd love to see our club get, a little bit more athletic. I'd love to see our club have a little bit more depth. If we have to sacrifice, a touted young piece like any of the guys that we've just mentioned for multiple pieces, I'm looking at it. If that means, rebooting the high levels of the farm system for, with a certain amount of, with whatever kind of trade, I'm interested. I just, it's disappointing. Shines a lot of light on our club as an organization. I feel like the deadline was underwhelming. I know what limitations we have there, but in the same sense, it's like, we just got to do better. Hopefully this isn't the end of our legitimacy, and that we can reboot and turn this thing around next year.
Yeah. So no, I agree. And the athletic trainer, James Crook, entering his second season as a head athletic trainer for the White Sox, spent 2 years as the assistant athletic trainer. So he got promoted internally there. So, don't want to call out a guy for his job or anything like that. It's like, guy just got promoted a couple of years, and now we're all, talking crap about him. But something's got to give here. I don't know. Got to do some training courses. I don't know. Something's up. So, hopefully we can. That can just be a better situation. And and I don't know if it's like the players not getting serious about their training or, stretching a little bit or whatever. I'm not too familiar with that, but that certainly is where, something's got to give, whether it's the communication of the training staff to be like, hey guys, you need to take this stuff seriously. This is how to do it. And, do your homework and everything. So something's got to give. But, everything though kind of comes down to the overall leadership there in the clubhouse, and that's Tony Russo. So he's got to go. I was never a fan of the hire initially, and definitely not a fan still right now. So he's definitely first on that list, and I think that'll just be a good reset. And then maybe make the assessment then of what to do with the team if they don't perform. If if the manager that comes in and it just isn't able to resonate with them, then maybe the next thing is to blow it up a little bit and see what pieces you can get. So that some prospects here and there to build up the farm system more and kind of go from there. So I think those are my thoughts right there. I'd be interested in maybe Joe Girardi. I don't know, is he still around? Like I know he got
canned by the Phillies.
But I know he's a Chicago guy and everything, but he would be somebody maybe I would look into, but I don't know. Wasn't too familiar with all the moves he made in the Phillies, but I know he was definitely at least from what I saw, a pretty decent manager with the Yankees. So they just need somebody that I think that can just be like, hey, let's have some energy, let's give our effort there, let's be professional, let's take this job seriously, and take care of our bodies too. So
there's got to be a new mix of messaging there, whether it's a guy who just resonates more as like a player coach, or somebody who's just like an authoritarian figure, like a Joe Girardi. In hindsight, I liked the La Russa hire at first. I just considered it as like, all right, would I rather have a guy who's won multiple World Series? And yes, he's very, very old and he's been out of the game for a little bit of time, but like, would I trust him over random player X from the 90s that I used to watch, who's now like the head coach of it? It's like, so I guess like that was what I was considering when we hired La Russa, is like, I know all the, the baggage he came with the DUIs and stuff like that too. I was kind of like, I'll look past some of that stuff, not personally, but like from a X's and O's winning perspective. And I was just like really underwhelmed with what he's done as a manager. And it's just his energy levels too. I mean, I'm sorry, but when you're like falling asleep in the dugout and you're making like boneheaded decisions that are getting picked apart by like national baseball news, like you're not doing yourself any favors. There's been video after video of like just embarrassing stuff around this guy. And it's just like, man, you just got to find another hobby at this point, because this is going awfully for you. It's like the worst case scenario for him. So But yeah, no, I think I'm kind of on the Joe Madden train. I know maybe that would get critiqued a little bit by Cubs fans or people that have seen him get canned from his own job, a couple times now. But he just always struck me as a guy who just always knew, how to resonate with players. He went through the minor leagues as manager, so he kind of gives me those Brian Snitker vibes. It just kind of like, he just seems like a cool guy. I just feel like people would like to, spend time with him in a locker room, just kind of talking baseball and kind of, being kind of like that father figure that, most of these young guys kind of need.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we talked about Joe Madden. I know. Well, I'm looking at age. I'm trying not to be ageist in practices here. Like, like Madden's gonna be turning. He's 68 right now. Joe Girardi's 57, so he's got he can spare a couple years. Although, yeah, it definitely felt like he was there forever with the Yankees for sure. But yeah, Joe Girardi's 57 while Madden's 68. So. If I'm going to pick an age or be all ages and not, look at Bruce, pull off a Bruce Arians, like, oh, you're too old. And then, he's winning Super Bowls and stuff like that. But yeah, I that's where I'm like, I think Joe Girardi could be a nice contrast, I think, to what's happened with Tony La Russa. But I think that's just my opinion. So we'll see what happens, I think, with the White Sox. Hopefully, like we've always been saying, we'd love to have the White Sox pull like an awesome run and make it to the playoffs, win the World Series, all that. But it's just hard to pull for this team right now. And that lack of energy that we're seeing is just, they just underperformed supremely. So,
yeah, I'm forever thankful for 2005.
Forever. Yeah.
It's just so thankful, man. Like
that. Yeah, that's gonna be like the '85 Bears. I feel like.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. That was like, I don't know, man. Not to be the reminiscing here or anything, but just to like, going to games that year, the expectations were like, this is a scrappy bunch. Like, hopefully they can contend for a playoff berth or something, and just like good vibes all year. It was like, man, this team like really gels well, and man, we got to the playoffs and just like never looked back. It was just like win after win after win. It was just like done. It was like complete game after complete game. And you're just like, are we in like what alternate universe are we living in right now with this team? So hopefully we can find, some sort of glory days ahead for the White Sox.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I guess, sticking with baseball here, kind of leading into the close of this season, I feel like there's two big names in the American League, both having amazing seasons for different reasons. But, we talked about the MVP, I think, at the midpoint of our season. I just want to ask, like, I feel like going into this year, we're like getting desensitized to the greatness that is Shohei Ohtani. But then we're also watching this historic run by Aaron Judge. Do you have what do you think like the voting criteria is going to be this year? And like, do you have a favorite out of those two, or, there might be another AL MVP candidate I'm just not, thinking about offhand, but like, what do you ultimately think?
I mean, I think, and this is like, goes back to like our whole thing of like, is it the best player? Is it the most valuable player, even though it is called the most valuable player award? Or is it like best player on the best team? Or is it the player that just is having the most unique or remarkable season yet? So if it's the case of like most remarkable season, I think part of that has to go with like how many times it's been done before. Is your team in first place? Like all those factors in. If you want to encounter or take into account all those things, winning team, unbelievable performance, solid numbers and all that, then that's where you kind of, I feel like you have to lean more on the Aaron Judge route with his historic run with the Yankees. The Yankees are in first place. I know they've been struggling, but they're still in first. So, and they're still probably going to be making the playoffs there. So, yeah, I think that's where if we want to figure out the definitions of who the MVP is and what they actually means, if we're going to go that route of just, a marvelous, all-encompassing season, winning team, etc., awesome numbers, Aaron Judge is the person. If we got to go with best player and like what they actually mean most to the team, I don't know how you don't go with Shohei and what he's been able to do here. yeah, he's has what, 29 homers, OPS 882, WAR 7.1. I think he's like the leader on in that front. So it's like, what more would you want an individual to do, right? It's like you want to. It's kind of like what like Tom Brady being able to pass the ball and catch the ball at the same time, right? Which I think his wife kind of called out for. So yeah, Giselle's right about that. Then we ought to play it into the MLB and how we look at players and evaluate them. Because Shohei can literally throw the ball and hit the ball, so and hit it at a really efficient, highly effective rate. So yeah, pitching stats: 11 wins here, 2.6 ERA. Has 176 strikeouts compared to 1 in 26 innings pitched. Like, again, I do not know how you don't look at Shohei and be like, dude, you're like the best overall, most valuable player. You just, with a crappy team. And that's just unfortunate. I know he won last year, and that's, this whole awards thing. It's like, oh, some player can't just win it multiple times in a row, right? They really just have to have a lot of other things going for him, like, being on a winning team. If he was for a winning team, the Angels were, in first place and everything, right now, would we be saying something different? Possibly, right? I think he would be winning in a landslide, but he's not. So that's, again, is my whole thing of where I feel like Aaron Judge probably will be getting it. And then he's also a New York Yankee, so he's got all that flavor there. So, but what do you think?
Man, this is such a good debate because I feel like, we look at Ohtani's numbers, both on the pitching side and the hitting side, and the guy, will probably end up with somewhere around 30 homers, 100 RBIs hitting. He might end up with 15 wins as a pitcher with a sub-3 ERA. And like you're saying, the strikeout to inning ratio, it's just unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable because you take 30 home runs and 100 RBIs from most guys and probably put him in the top 10 of the MVP voting. But oh yeah, we're gonna also add that he's a starting pitch. He's your number one starting pitcher, and it's just like we're so desensitized again to the fact that he's doing this right now, and now it's like known reality. It kind of like reminds me of Russell Westbrook with the triple doubles because it's like, this guy has that many triple doubles like that often, like. And then you get used to it and you're just like, okay. And then LeBron like plays, 20 plus seasons of 37-7. You're just like, well, yeah, LeBron's all right. He's great. But like, so it's kind of like you get in these arguments. But I guess, looking at it, Judge has the superior WAR when it's all said and done, even with those Ohtani numbers. So like he's got the 7.6 WAR to a 7.1 for Ohtani. Like you're saying, the New York Yankees were the talk of baseball in the first half. And I think my ultimate criteria for this is if Judge gets 61 or more home runs, he's the MVP. Because, we're talking about things that transcend the game. We're talking about things that when Ohtani showed up and he did what he did last year, even with Vladimir Guerrero, like nearing a triple crown at his age, it was like, the fact that he was doing that and over the course of the year as a two-way player was like mind-blowing. I think the same thing applies for Judge hitting 61 or more home runs. If, he's passing all his tests, there's no secret, PED test, I know, the new Yankee Stadium is a short porch and right, but again, he's doing it in the most harsh arena for pro sports, out there. It's debatable if Fenway lives up to that same kind of madness, but to be in New York City to do this, like Roger Maris did it, like the Babe did it, I'm disregarding the Bonds, McGuire, Sosa stats. I will always do that. A-Rod stuff, like I'll always disregard what they did, and unfortunately great, some of them were good talents, but this would be it for me, man. That's the decider, and he's getting close. I think he's at 51 right now. He's got a full month to go after it and get 10 plus. Like, I'm giving it to him. So that's my criteria.
Yeah, no. And just for the record, yeah, I agree. And I think Aaron Judge is my pick for MVP. He is the WAR leader, so the data is on his side there. And yeah, the team's first place, so they're winning. So I think it's kind of a slam dunk then of all these combinations of things that are going in his favor. And playing for the Yankees. I know the Yankees get a lot of flack for the overhypeness, with the media kind of just being attached to them and kind of hyping them up. But what Judge has been able to do has warranted it. WAR does take into place like the hitter park and stuff like that. So if you're clobbering the ball and if you're playing in Colorado, right, with the Colorado Rockies, then they're going to take that into account into WAR and stuff like that, and kind of how that compares against the averages of other players that play in that stadium. So that's always the same thing with the Yankee Stadium and how they do things over there at Fenway Park. So and the WAR definitely tells the story of Aaron Judge is the best player in baseball right now. So shout out to him, and his strikeout numbers are down now compared to when he was hitting 200 or when he got 200 strikeouts his rookie year. So love to see that progression, and I think he's going to have a career year in batting average, looks like, too. So all around, would love to see a player like Judge. He's a great guy too, it seems like, from everything we've seen. So would love to see him break the 61 barrier marker for the Yankees. And yeah, I know they were my pick to win or go to the playoffs and win the division there. So I anticipate them to make a run with the pitching set that they have right now. Although I do want to take back my Jordan Montgomery pick. That trade with Hicks and everything like that. Montgomery's killing it for the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals are making a run now. So happy for the Cardinals and all their players there with Schmidt and Arenado. So, but yeah, Judge I think is my MVP hands down with respect to Ohtani. So yeah,
sounds good. And then just to wrap up this show, Wayne, I know you caught a statement from the Major League Baseball Players Association talking about the fact that minor leaguers may, form a union. It sounds like they built a formal campaign to try to move that all in the right direction. What did you want to say about that?
Yeah, no, it's like it is interesting, right? That our country oftentimes has different things with regards to unions and all this, but like a major league sports union, oh, bring it on. We're totally fine for that. Like there seems to be a lot more positive sentiment towards, professional players getting unionized, but, not teachers or janitors or whatever. So very much happy for the minor leaguers here. Looks like there's potential. Again, potential. It's not all set in stone yet, but the MLBPA is trying to essentially expand their roster to the minor league players and grow it. I think it's like about 1,000 players right now to 5,000 minor leaguers or total players overall. So it looks like the MLBPA is trying to grow itself. And the vast majority of the minor leaguers really don't make that much money like they have. I think you talked about before about their pay. And then also they, have to stay with some family out there in the middle of nowhere, just okay, they're going to stay here for a couple of days or a week or a month or whatever for the season, and then feed them kind of like their kids or whatever. And these are grown men. They're just trying to live out their dreams and stuff. So that's just where the vast majority of minor league players are. And it looks like they need 30% of the minor league players to sign some sort of union authorization cards. And then that will lead to some sort of election. And so there's an entire process that needs to happen to occur for this. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's good for the sport overall. I think, if the players, these minor league players can concentrate less on, how much food they need to get or housing and stuff like that, and having better work conditions overall for themselves. Again, this is in contrast to the G League and how they organize things. You have college players or potentially college players going from high school, I should say, to the G League directly now because they know how to do it. They know how to, this is their developmental league. So that if you're going to invest in people, if you're in a white collar professional setting, if you're not investing in your talent to, do better, giving them resources, then you're doing a disservice to the game. You're doing a disservice to your company and organization. And I think that's what Major League Baseball is looking, why they want to, or at least the MLBPA wants to look into bettering the situations for them. So I think it'll be better overall for the players. And then so that they can concentrate more on hitting balls, catching balls, and pitching balls, rather than, how am I going to be treated, or how am I going to get over to the next stadium, or can I afford a watch or whatever, or shoes or proper clothes. I think it's just going to be better overall for the game itself, and happy for minor leaguers if they are able to do that, at least from my perspective. So yeah, but Pat, I know you love baseball. Want to hear your thing.
Yeah. So one summer in college, I want to say it was 2008, I interned at the Kane County Cougars. They were a single A affiliate at the time of the Oakland Athletics. And I was out in Geneva, Illinois, which was about 50 minutes away from Chicago. So I'll just tell a story. As an intern, I used to drive from the city, to Geneva for all home games, and even some, away games. We had responsibilities as interns to be there. We weren't paid on game days, though. We would be paid $32 a game to work 16-hour shifts at the ballpark. We'd show up at 8 a.m. and then we'd stick around all the way through the night, past the game, past the fireworks post game, and clean up. And we'd all leave, the facility at midnight. We'd have some stretches where we'd have, 7 straight games. We even had some where we had 10 straight game stretches of homestand. So you're working 7 to 10 days straight, making $30 an hour. I was in college. Luckily, I had financial security. I had a good blanket behind me. So, I just had, a summer where I was grinding, my head off, selling tickets, doing promotions, darting around the stadium, doing operations, learning how, major league teams are assembled through some of the other opportunities I got with the team. I mean, made some good friends. I had a great time. But, a lot of what I learned throughout that process also is the players weren't too far away from the interns. I mean, we felt like we were seeing them eye to eye, because all of them were staying with host families. They were eating the same garbage that we ate all summer, whether it was just leftover food from concessions or, go into a fast food or whatever else just to grab some, grab something in general. And, it's just no way to live. And especially when, the cameras are on these guys, they're a huge part of the product. I mean, they're the reason why, a lot of these pro athletes are, paid in the millions. And, if, media decide to pop into our offices every once in a while and feature us on, TV or whatever else, social media, then, hey, maybe we'd be able to unionize, better, or be paid the big bucks above what we're making. But, not to complain about that at all. But I just say, yeah, I mean, the time is now. Like you said, the G League example, I think that's a great way of showing like high school players now have options, and these guys should have options too. They're just as big of athletes. It's just as big of an industry. And, I don't want to see guys having to spend like their, nickels and dimes on 7-Eleven food. So, again, like, let's get this established in one way or the other, or, overall just improve, the conditions for these guys and get these guys paid once they get drafted to professional teams.
No, I think that's a great point, man. And yeah, I think that's just great. I think it's like, if you want a better sport, better feel about the game overall, like you got to invest where it all starts, at least in the professional setting or professional level. And, if we can get the minor leaguers to have a better overall life, a lot of them aren't going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated or anything like that. Some of them, most of them are not going to be able to make the majors in their lifetime. So anything to like help them have a nice start or anything like that. Again, it's like just allocation of resources from the top, from the MLB, and working with the MLBPA, I think is best overall for the sport. And yeah, again, like if they're not worrying about as much about their next meal and things of that nature, then I think that's going to be great for the game overall, where they can just concentrate on being fit and working on their craft. So, and I think that'll be awesome for everybody, and that loves baseball. So, yeah,
for sure. Well, on a lighter note, now that I started talking about 7-Eleven, I was a frequent goer of 7-Eleven, when I was a kid. Actually, I lived only 3 blocks away from one, and my uncle always had to grab cigarettes, so he would always take us on a walk and give us whatever change he had in his pocket. But he did have some signature items that I would always go to as a kid. I just wanted to give you the floor first if you wanted. Were you a 7-Eleven kid? And if so, what were your snacks of choice? Why were you going in there?
Why was I going in there? To make a ruckus. I don't know what you're talking about. No. What did I like? I always got like the ices and all. I've always been a big icy person.
Slurpee or icy?
Oh, icy. Yeah, it's Slurpee, right? Or it's Slurpee.
Okay, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking movie theaters. I think I'm thinking movie theaters.
I was like, man, this is going against their brand, but
yeah. But I will get a Slurpee at 7-Eleven. Not just on the 7-Eleven days. Although I would definitely frequent there and have frequented there like the past like 10 years for a Slurpee there. So definitely gonna get a Slurpee. I'll even eat like again kind of like a makeshift meal. I'll get their hot dog that's on the hot dog machine there too, as fresh as it can be. Especially if a Costco is nearby and I can just walk in there and grab a $1.50 Costco. I'll grab the hot dog there. And even on DoorDash, like I think DoorDash has 7-Eleven, so sometimes I'll even get like a burrito just from 7-Eleven there. Again, if I'm feeling cheap and just want to get something real quick there, so just a nice bean burrito with like a pop or some chips. So and then I'm always a Sour Patch Kid person, so if I can get it from 7-Eleven, I'll toss them in there too. Again, I have the worst diet when it comes to any of this type of food, but I would not change it for the world. So yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I usually always had like a $5 bill, and back in the day, man, $5 just go a really long way. But I'd always get the supersized bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, paired with a large Slurpee, usually a bag of those powdered sugar donuts, like the $2 to $3 bag. That's just like, and I would crush it. I mean, I would eat like that's probably like 20 donuts plus in that thing, like really unhealthy. And there was one night where I came back with all that stuff, was playing video games, laid down for 1 second and just got up and chucked. And it was just like, it just had to happen. I mean, I really couldn't hold in all that garbage, but anyways, it didn't stop me from going to 7-Eleven like every other weekend as a kid growing up. So like same situation, same scenario, get that $5 back. Candy bars used to be 60 cents a pop. You walked through that thing as I got older, started doing more of the entree stuff like the nachos and everything else. But anyways, just wanted to tip my cap to 7-Eleven, still around, still clicking. Not sure where they're at performance wise these days, but man, that was an institution as a kid.
They're big in Asia. Actually. like you can go to some remote places in Asia and then there'll be a 7-Eleven there and you can just like sit down and like have a good meal and everything. Like 7-Eleven is like a national, it's a pretty decent brand over, because like, oh, it's the US, it's cool. But yeah, you can get like sushi and stuff like that in 7-Eleven there, and it's like pretty decent. So yeah, we need to up our game, America 7-Eleven. We need to up our game, I feel like. Fight inflation. So yeah, with 7-Eleven. But Twizzlers too. I also got Twizzlers, the peel. Gotta get
You're
the peel.
a Twizzler guy. All right.
Yeah. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So I think with that, I'm probably gonna go on DoorDash and get some 7-Eleven now, or walk over. Actually, it's not a couple blocks away, so I'll probably go over there now. Get some.
Dude, every time I order on DoorDash, they ask me if I want to add 7-Eleven to my order, and I'm just like, do you just getting into my mind? Are you just playing games with me now? Like,
the answer is yes.
Yeah, right. So I pop up the app, and it's like, man, everything else is just like $1. It's like, all right, like I've never done it on it, to be honest with you. I've never tacked onto the order because I was just like, this is such a scheme, man. Like they're just gonna like wire everything through my social media and just start like popping up all these other restaurants and just tacking stuff onto orders. But anyways, and shout out 7-Eleven, man. I actually have one 2 blocks away. So like if I wanted to,
we all
could.
have 7-Eleven 2 blocks away.
Seriously, what is going on, man? They just, where we live. I mean, good on them. But
good on them.
Anyways, man, great episode. Looking forward to any sort of commentary out there for any listeners. If you want to share your draft picks with us, critique our drafts in any sort of way, or if you got a 7-Eleven item that just we overlooked, we want to hear about it. So Wayne, did you have any other thoughts?
I think that's all, man. Yeah, go get some 7-Eleven. Maybe I'm gonna go add in some Sour Patch Kids on my orders now, and looking forward to being fat again. So, all right, yeah.
Sounds good. That's a wrap. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.